Greetings, gods and goddesses in training. Welcome back to the channel. It is Uncle Makara. All relations. I am back in Kolkata now from that whole trip from Bailakuppe to Bangalore and now back home. Didn't get that much rest yesterday, so I'm going to definitely take some more rest today. I got this shirt that arrived, Chakra shirt, which is very potent, powerful, especially when it comes down to my own inspiration, character development, and so forth. Now, I've been looking at the chakra system and I've been trying to understand them quite differently. What if you were to perceive your chakras not just as energy centers, but as vortexes or almost like worlds, right, that you can enter? Because each chakra has a connection to the other ones, right? So if you enter one world, you have access to other worlds. So this is kind of a very meta subject that we're going to be talking about today, but the title of the video today is how to unhack your chakras. Modern society will convince you that your chakras are blocked, whereas I'm here to tell you they might have been just hacked, okay? What do I mean by this? Let's say that you were in a classroom when you were younger and a teacher told you to shut up, and you held that tension right here where your neck is, and you couldn't express yourself. You couldn't, let it go. You felt that fear of expression, okay? So that blocked your throat chakra, but in a way it was hacked, wasn't it? Because that one experience changed the circuitry of that energy center, because it had to redefine itself in that moment, that it is not safe to express myself, was the belief that created this blockage in the first place. So we have to understand there might be physical things happening in your body, there might be a mental block, there might be an emotional block, there might be an energetic block and a spiritual block. So I work with the 5 bodies primarily, and it's important to do this because creating distinctions like this and structure like this actually helps you as a healer to move forward, instead of living kind of wishy-washy in this vague amorphous state, kind of just like doing things, dabbling a little bit and then changing into another thing, right? I used to do that early on in my spiritual path when I realized, like, that ain't it, fam. So mainly culture, trauma, and self-betrayal hacks these chakra points, because you've been trained to treat this inner temple like a shopping mall. Root chakra is manifest money. Heart chakra is like just be nice, right? So many generalizations online, and if you go on the spiritual TikTok, you're gonna be drowning in all of this stuff. Third eye does not mean just seeing cool stuff, bro, okay? This kind of stuff is not spirituality. It's spiritual malware. It's a virus in the system. We have to take it out. So that means unhacking your chakras means not buying a whole bunch of crystals or binge watching videos of sound baths and crystal healing. It's about reclaiming the sovereignty of your inner circuitry. And every gate was created not to sedate you, but to initiate you. This is why they call it awakening, right? Because it's something that's rising within you. And here's the thing, a lot of, hardcore Christians will say that the chakras are evil, but there are so many different systems that use the chakras as a map. So these cross-tradition coincidences point out that this is actually a universal thing, and it's not just, limited to, Hindu consciousness or something. The Upanishads mentioned it, Sekhem in ancient Egypt, meridians, Sephiroth, right? Marma points, Toltec fields, and even different random convergences in science and body anatomy, that we start to understand this very differently. Now, a lot of people love to be wishy-washy and talk about, I've opened my heart chakra. You haven't opened it. You're creating more of a freedom and less constriction within you, therefore it being more dimensionally fluid. So they use these codings, if you notice, as protection for activation. They use symbols like the lotus flower, or an animal, or a mantra, or a mandala, right? This was just an encryption against unpurified activation. So they used symbolism that brought in a virtuous connotation to these points. And that's really important for you to understand if you're going to unhack this thing. So each level, if you think of them as different levels of the video game, demand a new sacrifice. One is confronting your identity. One is dealing with lies. One is, changing your relationship to comfort and so forth. So each chakra point is an archetype, a deity current, an element, and a note, musical notes, an octave. So that means it's a programmable portal. It's not a point. The original teachings were very dangerous because this created sovereignty in the individual, not dependency on, a guru who then gives me this awakening so that I can activate it within me. So why are we all waking up to this realization now? Well, look at the planet right now, right? Everything's kind of in chaos, very scattered. Technique without truth hardens the mask. So this is why planetary transparency of these teachings, of this way of life, of being enriched with all this stuff, is actually going to be empowering you. And this isn't about getting like instant downloads, right, guys? This is about building brick by brick, okay? Building the inner temple brick by brick. Because every activation of Kundalini that you have is a mini ego death, essentially. So that means the price of entry was the previous version of you. Refine, reroute, reseek, reseed. So if you understood your system as the anatomy of God remembering itself, you will actually start treating your body, mind, spirit complex quite different to the average person. If your lower centers are weak, your higher centers become illusion factories. Fake intuition, fake downloads, fake compassion. And that's most of the spiritual community nowadays, right? That's how the sorcery starts to leak into this stuff and distorts all of our perception. So here's the unhacked protocol, Primal Sutra style. Let's start with the root chakra. For the root chakra, you have to rip out the scarcity virus. Get back in touch with earth. Walk barefoot. Ground your feet into the grass. Eat grounding foods. Look after your own survival, right? Clean your room. Until you feel like a mountain, you're just building castles on top of sand. For the sacral chakra, I've noticed it's really about changing this pleasure-pain paradigm for you. Change that algorithm around and stop numbing yourself. Dance, feel through things. Don't just bypass your emotions. I think a lot of men, especially nowadays, they just kind of go into this like stoic mode and then they restrict their emotions. They create facial armoring and they create a lot of body armoring too, right? And this is why they cannot open up their hips. They cannot move in and be more languid and flowing in their lives, right? They cannot have that agility of like an animal would, right? That they feel very stiff and robotic. So this is what you have to start to change slowly, right? Get used to moving your body in a more languid way and let it bring up resistances for you actually, right? You might move your hips and be like, this is so feminine and gay, I don't want to do this, right? That's your programming, that's your dogma. So watch it, observe it, do the shadow work as you do the chakra work, right guys? Give me a thumbs up if you agree with me. Next is the solar plexus, where you kind of have to rewrite this domination code that's been embedded into our genes and wiring, almost like we love this like bloodthirsty nature of human beings to provoke violence, right? But violence happens from when you're very, very identified with your sense of self, because it's all through that protection, and the ego loves protection, so it loves violence. So set boundaries, train your will like a blade, do something tough and difficult on purpose. You need confidence built from friction that builds this divine fire without burning you. For the heart chakra, you really have to kill that martyr virus, okay, of carrying other people's pains. I'm carrying generations of pains in my heart center. Whoa, okay, that sounds like a very closed off and guarded place. Forgiveness is not weakness. Love does not mean self-abandonment. So this is a practice of real compassion plus real boundaries, is the heart chakra. And this center, I would say, is the most hacked because it's a power bridge, right? It weaves the higher and the lower chakras together. It's almost like a headquarters, right? Heart quarters. Well, fierce boundaries and unconditional openness will really help you with your heart chakra. But really watch out for the fake compassion, because that does close up the heart. If it's fake, if it's not real, if it's not authentic, you'll still feel resistances there. For the throat or the Visuddha, you have to understand the vibrational mechanics of this thing. You see, lies collapse the subtle body's scaffolding because it stops believing in its own words. If you keep lying over and over again, what you're essentially doing is creating more and more of a block. And it's going to get worse over time as you keep lying, as I had learned from Ellie. So you're going to have to deprogram your voice. Have radical honesty with yourself. Sing, chant, hum. Open this center up. Every word is architecture. Speak the truth even if your voice shakes. Open this thing up. Reverberate it, right? Find it inner tuning, right? As an audio shaman, I love doing this. Just humming and allowing myself to go in a lower pitch with the hum and a higher pitch with the hum to find my inner resonance point. The third eye, listen. There's too much stuff there about activating the third eye, and third eye has become a buzzword. The Anya, or the Ajna chakra, is really where you train your real sight, clear vision, and ask to see patterns, not predictions. But remember, without your heart, your perception becomes manipulation. So there might be a person with a very awakened third eye chakra. However, they're still living under the false notion that their perception is the right perception. Avoid these pitfalls. And the crown, okay, the ego cannot own source. The crown opens when your sense of me, okay, or your identity starts to dissolve. So you can never force this seventh chakra open, okay? Now, of course, there's oversoul chakras above and undersoul chakras below, as you guys know, but I'm just covering these main seven to give you guys kind of a taste and an idea of these teachings. Unhacking is not going to be instant. It's not sexy, okay? It's not glorifying and it looks cool on social media. It's absolutely terrifying, actually, because you're meeting parts of yourself that you never even would know is there. Every gate you clear, it's almost like I have to leave back an old identity. And this is why the symbolism of a snake, because the snake sheds its skin. Don't treat chakras like toys, treat them like advanced fractal gateways. So Rudolf Steiner said that the chakras are not concepts, they're embryonic senses, organs that let you perceive the same realm that you'll walk through when you die. And they're grown through feeling presence and inner silence, actually. Not through New Age cosplay, not through affirmations, and definitely not through dopamine. You see, the enemy of chakra awakening is noise, static of the ego-mind identity, right? Where you can't experience tuning your inner instrument clearly. The malware of distraction is what keeps your subtle senses asleep. So we have to reverse engineer this virus, guys, right? Observe growth and decay. Be out in nature. Watch the flowers wilt and watch them bloom. Don't think, feel. You are now reclaiming your clairvoyance by allowing nature's pulse to reverberate inside of you. When you can hold creation and dissolution without flinching, the first astral eyes start to form. The next thing that Steiner had said is to distinguish dead sound from living sound. Notice the difference between a bell and a bird, from a drum to a cry, and merge with feeling inside the sound. This is not easy for people to do who don't train in this, so this is why I'm telling you to train in this. There's this empathy that comes from the extrasensory perceptions. So when your hearing becomes selfless, you hear what's beyond speech, which is the inner word. The next thing is when others are speaking, you don't constantly have to wait to respond and argue back with them. You can just listen and receive the data before you go ahead and start explaining yourself, or over-explaining yourself in most cases. If you can't stop reacting, you're too noisy to hear God speak to you. And the higher beings remain silent until you are. Step 4 is to contemplate essence. Hold a stone and then an animal in your awareness. Notice how one moves and one just rests. One acts through instinct and the other acts through inertia. This technique will also help you differentiate from what is AI and what is real in the future too. So this is very important to understand. This contrast awakens two feelings in the soul, the still and the living. So you're building this binocular vision for these unseen worlds, guys. Next thing is to meditate on a seed. Know that that small thing, inside that small little thing, is an invisible force that can create a tree. The thought that the invisible becomes visible is very important for you to understand, actually, because this builds that astral architecture internally for you. And this is the same mechanism that makes your chakras bloom. And of course, meditating on death and renewal helps you really clarify and embody this sense of impermanence, which gives you a proper time dilation. Feel what remains when the visible fades and you close your eyes. So meditate on your own death and renewal. Watch a plant die, see the seed survive. That something unseen is the etheric law of rebirth. And every chakra mirrors this law. Birth, death, seed, resurrection. Next is the empathic perception of desire. Visualize someone burning with longing. Just observe their desire as data without judgment. And try and see if you can feel what they felt. When your empathy becomes exact enough, you'll start seeing the energy of that desire, the luminous astral picture of emotion itself. And this is how clairvoyance begins. Not through psychedelics, but through a precise compassion, a bodhicitta. So this is not about power, it's about purity of perception. Look through these different chakra points as lens, and you can even see if you can perceive entities through these chakra points as you can see them very differently through these different worlds. Okay? So from your heart, love, and compassion, if you notice you see the being, it'll appear quite different to you, as opposed to looking from your third eye, as opposed to looking from your roots, okay, and so forth. So this is a very useful technique that I actually got from the Fred Dodson, the Clearing Entities book, but very powerful mindset and way of thinking about this. When you unlearn the mental speculation and you just let reality speak, each chakra reactivates as it was meant to. Root, observation of life and death. The sacral starts to bloom when you are feeling without numbing yourself. The solar plexus strengthens by will that is trained in silence. The heart opens through empathic resonance. The heart opens with empathic resonance without projection. The throat chakra aligns when there is a truthful sound and an internal quiet. And the third eye sees through the patterns that is behind life's contrast. And the crown blooms when the observer disappears. The modern culture wants your chakras to be kind of cartoonish, right? Look at it as childlike, that this is not like real spirituality or whatever. This is also because of an ulterior motive. You see, a fully awakened energy body cannot be controlled. So to reclaim the original technology of this thing, that source starts to speak again through your senses. You don't awaken these things by chasing fireworks. You awaken them through presence, and inner stillness, through meditation, right? The real ascension is depth, not height. And the real mantra is attention without distortion. Unhack the system, restore your temple, and become sacred living geometry once again. Flow Mishkaram and Flow Mistake, thank you so much for tapping in. I hope you have an incredible rest of your day. May the flow be with you. May you never be the same again. Stay legendary. You got this, we got this. Upward spiral gang to infinity and beyond. Let's get it today. Let's win. Boom.